Hey YouTube, it's Snowflarky Zemos, and today I'm here with my Big Insect Cocoon of Evolution deck profile. This is a deck that I put together after they came out with the new insect support in one of the legendary duelist set that got the Ultra Cocoon, and something that I was very excited to get and put together because as a child I was a really big fan of insect cards. As far as like just type tribes, insects was definitely the one I probably latched onto the most as soon as I discovered cards like Pinch Hopper and Metal Armored Bug, and I even played some like Arsenal Bug, Gravity Bind, Beatdown stuff. So definitely have some love for insects, and I love that Ultra Cocoon of Evolution gave like this whole, finally let us live that cocoon hatching play style in a way that like we could even play this perfectly ultimate great moth you're seeing here, which is just pretty sweet. And so it's definitely a deck I wanted to add to my collection. A very fun deck for me to pick up and play in a casual setting. Unfortunately, the stuff's not good enough to be competitive, but it's still fun to have if you have a duel night with your friends, or you just want to play something local. So with that said, let's start looking at the card by card. First, we're going to start with our monsters. I am playing one copy of Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. This is a just 3,500 attack, big insect monster that is normally impossible to summon through its normal effect, waiting like 7 turns with a petite moth equipped with Cocoon of Evolution. But this card can be cheated out pretty easily in this deck thanks to the help of Parasite Paranoid, Ultra Cocoon, and for that reason, I'm definitely playing it. Do note that probably in the best version of this deck, this card would probably not be good because it's just a 3,500 attack body, where we can definitely pick some larger insects that have multiple uses. But, since it's perfectly ultimate great moth, and this isn't a very competitive deck, even in its best form, I figure we just gotta play it. We gotta summon the 3,500. It's the reason to put it together is that you want to pull this monster off. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of the Metamorphized Insect Queen. This is a nice other big insect payoff to summon. And what's nice about this, 2,800 attack monster, must be special summoned by a card effect, and if another insect monster is on the field, your opponent cannot target insect monsters you control with card effects. Also, they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Which is pretty sweet. So it gives your insects some protection, which is nice. And then at the end of the damage step, if this card attacked, you contribute an insect monster to attack an opponent's monster again in a row. So that's pretty cool. That's kind of like the old Insect Queen had the ability to tribute. Now, of course, it's only attacking monsters, so we can't use this to constantly push face. But of course, once per turn during the end phase, you can special summon an insect monster token, which is just a tiny token with 100 attack and 100 defense, but gives you insect bodies that you can tribute on a later turn for attacking. So Metamorphized Insect Queen is pretty sick. 2,800 attack is big. The ability to wipe monster fields is pretty big, but probably most important is that it provides your insects with that protection, and something like that makes your perfectly ultimate great moth per se just a little bit stronger. So that is an awesome card to include. I definitely want to see it, and I'm happy to summon multiple copies, so I don't mind playing 3. Next, I'm actually playing a copy of Metal Armored Bug. This is a 2,800 attack normal monster insect, which is pretty cool. The big thing to note about this, of course, while there are better targets, is with this deck I am playing Giant Ballpark, and Metal Armored Bug has some nice synergy with Giant Ballpark's effect to special summon insect normals out of the grave, and this is just the highest attack target we can get with that. So, if we've got Insect Queen on the field already, we can just pull out Metal Armored Bug. It can do big damage at the time, and then if it gets removed, of course, there are ways that it can be recycled and brought back, which can be quite obnoxious. And also, it's just awesome that this is just one of my favorite cards from childhood. So the fact that I could technically make a use for it is pretty cool. So I'll definitely play it as there. Next up, the last of my big insects, I am playing a copy of Comungus, the Sticky String Kaiju. Now it's just a 2400 attack, but it has the trade-off that it's a kaiju, so I don't necessarily need to summon this off of the Cocoon. I can if it's the only body left and it's enough to win the game. But, you know, Comungus can also just be in my hand, tribute off a problematic opponent's monster, and, you know, give them Comungus instead. You know, we all know how powerful kaijus are. I would say, honestly, in the best version of this deck, things like Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth and Metal Armored Bug should probably just be a complete kaiju package, and then that would give you the ability to, because we also have Godarla, the Mystery Dust kaiju you could play, and of course that would give you the ability to play the Kaiju Interrupted Slumber card. So definitely something to keep in mind if this is a deck you want to look into yourself, is consider going the full Kaiju route, but for me, I'm just sticking with that. So next up, I am playing 3 copies of Shiny Black Sea Squatter. So the Cocoon insects are not a lot of cards, usually not enough to flesh out their own deck, so I decided to supplement it with another insect strategy that is playable, Giant Ballpark, which is pretty cool, and it uses normal monsters, which is a big plus for me, because as many of you know, I'm a huge normal monster fan. And Shiny Black Sea Squatter is just the best Giant Ballpark target. It's a level 4 monster with 2000 attack. You know, that's as high as normal monsters get, and it's pretty sweet. It's also nice that they gave us super rare versions of this card, which I am very into. Next up, I'm also playing 3 copies of Insect Knight. This is the next best target, and of course a very classic, you know, meme card with its flavor text here. And so 1900 attack, that's just the next highest, a little weaker than Shiny Black Sea Squatter, but you know, if we already have the Sea Squatters, then Insect Knight is the next up in the line of defense. After that, I'm going to play 3 copies of Goku Pull. Goku Pull is pretty sweet. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a level 4 insect monster from your deck to your hand. And if the card you added is a normal monster, you can special summon it and then destroy a monster on the field with attack greater than or equal to the attack of the special summon monster. So that's nice. That means we could grab a Insect Knight or a Black Sea Squatter and then destroy a monster on the field with greater attack and special summon it, so it kind of floats, pretty cool. Or we can search any other level 4 insect that we are running, which is pretty sweet. Now, of course, you can only use the effect of Goku Pull once per turn, but you know, definitely a card that we want to have handy. It's a pretty good target, and so we play it. Next up on our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Parasite Paranoid. Now this is one of the power cards of the Cocoon strategy here. Parasite Paranoid has a quick effect that you can target a face-up monster on the field and equip this card from your hand to that monster. The equipped monster becomes an insect-type monster and cannot attack insect-type monsters. Also, effects that activate by targeting an insect monster are negated. So, you know, you can use this to protect your monsters from some targeting effects if you don't have Metamorphized Insect Queen already on the field. And then, of course, the real payoff if this equipped card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a level 7 or higher insect monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions, which is pretty nice. That gets us out our Insect Queen, our Ultimate Great Moth. Any of our big insects that are in our hand can now hit the field because of Parasite Paranoid, and that's kind of a reason why you got to play a higher number of large insects than you like, is that really to get a powerful play you need 1 in your hand and 1 to pull from the deck. But definitely cool to keep in mind, and what's cool, of course, is equipping this to an opponent's monster, and using Cocoon of Ultra Evolution means that we'll tribute off an opponent's monster for big insects, and that, of course, is just a very powerful play. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Retaliating C. Retaliating C is, of course, a pretty interesting card. It has the effect that when an opponent activates a spell card, That includes an effect that special summons a monster. You can special summon this card from your hand, and then of course, if special summon this way, this card becomes like Macrocosmos, and any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So that's a pretty powerful anti-meta tool you can utilize. It's not too great though, because that can be very harmful to you too, which is why I was picking it up and reading it, because you don't actually use that effect too often. What this card is mostly used for is its secondary effect, which if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add an earth insect type monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. And what's important about that is this card searches Parasite Paranoid, and that is the reason I'm playing this card in the deck, because Parasite Paranoid is very important and we want to have a searcher. So we are playing Retaliating C. It's also a level 4 insect that we can search off of Goku Pull, which, gives us a chain of searching we can do to get to Parasite Paranoid. And for that reason, I am playing 3 Retaliating C in the deck. That secondary, that first effect of becoming Macrocosmos is kind of cool and can be very punishing, but it can be very harmful to you too, so be very careful when doing it. Next, I got some other cards in here, mostly for going second. You normally want to go second with this deck and try to OTK, especially since it requires your opponent to have a monster on the field already. So we're playing a copy of Dino Wrestler Pankratops. Very powerful going second card. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you just special summon this card for free. It's got 2600 attack, and you can also pop itself and a card your opponent controls. So it's a card that your opponent kind of has to answer with, or you're going to remove something with it. And for a free summon, that's just awesome. So we'll play our 1 copy of Pankratops as a limited card. Next, we're going to play 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Ash Blossom, we all know it. When your opponent's going to search, when they're going to send a card from your deck to the graveyard, you just play Ash Blossom and negate the effect. Because we want to go second, hand traps like this are very good because we want to make our opponent's turn 1 plays weaker, as weak as possible. And by doing so, we can put them in a position where we could easily OTK them. So Ash Blossom at 3. And last, to fill some slots, I'm playing 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Different metagames, different decks you're playing against require different hand traps. Since I play this deck a lot casually, Ghost Ogre seems to be pretty powerful because it removes a card when an effect is activated. It removes the card that activates the effect. Doesn't stop the effect, but it gets rid of the body, which can be pretty disruptive. And for that reason, it's still a pretty cool card to be playing. And that is it for the monsters. Next here, we are going to go into spell cards. I am playing 3 copies of Giant Ballpark, which is the card that gets the normal insect part of the deck working. Giant Ballpark is an incredibly awesome field spell. During damage calculation, if a player would take battle damage, you can make neither player take any battle damage from that battle, and if you do, send a level 4 or lower insect monster from your deck to the graveyard. So this can be our normal monsters, this can be Goku Pull, and both of them have different reasons to be sent, so keep that in mind. But if you sent a normal monster this way, you can special summon any number of monsters with that same name as the monster sent from your hand, deck, or field to the graveyard. You can special summon as many of them as you want to the field. This is a huge way to get an OTK. If we get an attack on an open board, we can just make that attack 0, send a shiny black sea squatter to the grave, then we can summon this sea squatter that we just sent to the grave, and 2 more from the deck, which gives an extra 6,000 damage. And of course, it's 5,700 if you get Insect Knight, so very powerful tool. And of course, this effect can be used on either player's turn, which is pretty nice. During an opponent's turn, we can shield ourselves from damage from an attack, and then maybe send like Goku Pull, and use Goku Pull to get Insect Knight or Shiny Black Sea Squatter, and then use the effect to pop a monster, which is pretty cool, or grab us a Retaliating C for the following turn, etc. So a lot of things that can be done with Giant Ballpark in this deck, of course. And then, of course, we have the last effect of Giant Ballpark, which is the reason I'm playing Metal Armored Bug. If a monster you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, except during the damage step, you can special summon an insect normal monster from your graveyard, and each effect of Giant Ballpark can only be used each turn, which means if we already have Metal Armored Bug in rotation and it's now in the graveyard, whenever our monster is destroyed by a card effect, we can just summon Metal Armored Bug right out, and it's 2800 attack. That's pretty big. Definitely something we want to keep in mind. And for that reason, Giant Ballpark is just awesome. Giant Ballpark on its own, when it came out, was a pretty powerful deck. And arguably, if you wanted to just turbo in a Giant Ballpark deck strategy, you might have a stronger, better deck than this Cocoon strategy. But, you know, I want to play the Cocoon strategy, and it needs more spots anyway. So you might as well add Giant Ballpark to it, give it a really powerful engine. Next, we're playing a copy of Terraforming. It searches Giant Ballpark, so we want to play it. And, of course, next, the big payoff to the insect card. These beautiful Cocoon of Ultra Evolutions. Awesome card. Essentially, what you do, you tribute an insect monster from either side of the field that is equipped with an equipped spell. Now, that part is important because if we put Parasite Paranoid on our opponent's monster, it becomes an insect. So then we contribute off that monster with Cocoon of Ultra Evolution. And by doing so, we get to special summon an insect monster from our deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So pulls from the deck can grab Ultimate Great Moth, it can grab Insect Queen, it can grab Kaiju, it can grab Metal Armored Bug. If you want to play a different large insect in your version, it can grab that too, and it pulls it right from the deck, which is awesome. And if you have Parasite Paranoid, then you'll also get one from your hand. So that's two really powerful insects. And if one of them is Insect Queen, of course, then they're got some protection on them, which is pretty sick. And then, of course, there's a secondary effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one insect-type monster in your graveyard, shuffle it into the deck, and draw one card. So that's pretty cool. You know, just let you cycle a card back into the deck, draw a card. Pretty sweet. Awesome secondary effect to have, keep things moving. So very cool card, very powerful, very awesome. Next, I am playing one copy of Moon Mirror Shield. I considered playing another version of equip cards, or maybe just some more main deck equip cards. But essentially, if we do not have Parasite Paranoid ready to go, we can just equip one of our own insects with this card and tribute it off to get our big insects if we're ready for it. And of course, outside of that, Moon Mirror Shield is just a great equip card because it means any monster can attack over any other monster. So for that reason, I consider it was worth. It comes in handy sometimes. Definitely worth considering bumping up another copy. And of course, I've always been curious maybe what a bamboo sword strategy might do in this, but things for another day. Next up, I'm playing a copy of Rygecki. Card for going second here. Now, of course, this could be something like evenly matched, but we really want to do everything we can to leave our opponent's field open, because if we do, it's very likely we can get an OTK in one turn, and Rygecki is just a card to do that. Pretty sweet, especially now that we can play it at 3. But for the time being, I also just have a copy of Dark Hole, just another copy of Rygecki. Now we can play a bunch of Rygecki now, so probably just going to sleeve up another Rygecki and sub that out, which is pretty sick. And last for our main deck, and as well as spells, I'm playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. You can definitely, there's a lot of rank 4 synergies you can make in this deck, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of really strong extra deck plays in this version. You're mostly getting your main deck insect monsters out that are providing you the effects. So our extra deck is better off served as Extravagance fodder. And that is perfectly fine. You know, banishing 6 extra deck cards gets us 2 cards. And getting us 2 cards makes us more likely to see cards we want to see, either Ballpark, Parasite Paranoid, you know, Field Wipe, whatever we're looking for. So getting more cards is always nice. And that is it for the main decks. Not playing any trap cards in this deck. Next, looking at our extra deck. Once again, extra deck is mostly extravagance fodder, but you got a lot of level 4s, so definitely I've decided to go all in on the rank 4 strategy, since a big link board didn't seem, you know, didn't seem like I could make anything too powerful with this deck. So, going into it, I'm playing one copy of Baguska, the Tiredly Tapered Tapir. If you special summon this guy in defense, it's skill drain for 2 turns, which is pretty sweet. Can buy you a lot of time. I would definitely bump this card up to 3 if I had more copies, because I would always want this card to be in the deck even after Extravagance. But because I have one, I am just playing one. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Tornado Dragon. Tornado Dragon, once per turn, quick effect, you detach a material to pop a spell or trap card on the field. That's pretty awesome. Quick effect nature of it is nice. Just a very useful effect, making it a great rank 4 for me to play. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Castel, the Sky Blaster Musketeer. You basically detach 2 materials from this to target a face-up card and shuffle it back into the deck. So, you know, a form of non-destruction removal. It is targeting, so that can be weak, but the card certainly comes in handy. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is a very powerful rank 4 XZ. If you summon it, you can detach a material from it, and your opponent cannot activate the effect of cards in their graveyard this turn. You know, in this game where there's so many graveyard effects, turning those off can be quite powerful. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Divine Arsenal Zeus. Zeus is pretty nice because if you have an XZ monster that attacks, you can throw Zeus on it. Then for 2 materials, you can basically send all other cards on the field to the graveyard, which is pretty nice. Very powerful monster that is annoying to deal with. So if you got Zeus, you might as well play it. Next up, 1 copy of Gaga Cowboy. You know, a card that certainly can come in use if you're just shy 800 points of damage, but can make Cowboy afterward. Well, now you've turned your thing into an OTK, so pretty cool. Next, 1 copy of Dark Rebellion XZ's Dragon. Detach 2 materials, target a monster on the field, have its attack, and give that attack to Dark Rebellion. So it makes it a very powerful monster to hit. Next, a copy of Heartland Draco. You can detach a material to make this card able to attack directly, but other monsters cannot attack. So if your opponent's got less than 2,000 life, but they've got a wall of stuff you can't get around, but you can get around it with Heartland Draco's effect, you can make Draco and do that. Next, a copy of Silent Honor Arc. Detach 2 materials to target a special summon monster and equip it to Silent Honor Arc. And of course, when Honor Arc would be destroyed, you can detach a material instead. Also, I said that wrong. I shouldn't have said equip it. It attaches to it as a material. So that's pretty cool. Next up, the progression meme itself, a copy of Ragna Zero. Sometimes you want to summon Ragna Zero and just lose the game, but it's essentially a card that just says during either player's turn, you can attach a material to target a monster whose attack is different from its original attack, destroy it, and draw a card. So pretty cool. Certainly works in certain matchups. Got a copy of Evil Swarm Exciton Knight. It says once per turn during either player's main phase or your opponent's battle phase. If your opponent has more cards in their hand and field, and on their side of the field, then you detach a material and wipe the field. Pretty cool. And next, just a copy of Gaga Samurai. You know, it's you can just detach it, target Gaga Samurai. It can attack twice, so can push for extra damage, especially if you have to wait to get a material that you detach from it back. Or if you have something like a Retaliating C and overlay with an Insect Knight, it's technically more damage to do it this way. So just something to keep in mind. So yep, not the most optimal rank 4 extra deck. But, you know, just consider your best ranked 4s. If you can find a good link building strategy, you can go with that. You know, plenty of options there. As a little bonus about this deck, like I said, in a stronger version of this deck, I might recommend you replace things like Metal Armored Bug and Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth with a full Kaiju package, including Godarla and Comungus, and of course that would allow you to play Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, which is very good. But there's also lots of big insects that are, if you got a casual setting, that are really fun that can be played. One of them I sometimes switch out Metal Armor Debug for, and you know, for fun is Brain Crusher, which only has 2400 attack for a 7-star, But once per turn, if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and it was sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one of those destroyed monsters from the graveyard during the end phase. So gives you, lets you steal opponent's monsters, gets them out of their grave, puts them on your field. That's pretty sick. And of course, this card is just really nice in its shiny hollow printing. So it's a fun card to switch things up and play. Like I said, this is a casual deck, that you should play with your friends. Maybe you could play it at a local if you beef it up a little bit. So definitely have some fun with it. Use it to play your favorite big insects, and this is just definitely a cool target that can be played. With that said, that is it for my Cocoon of Evolution Big Insect deck profile. Let me know what you think. Are you a big fan of insects? I'd be curious to know what your favorite tribe is, if it isn't insects, as far as type tribing, I mean. So let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace out.